Let's start with The Gutter. The Gutter is directed by Isaiah Lester and Yasir Lester. I did not look it up, but I'm assuming they are probably brothers. And last week we had, what is it? Let's start a cult, and we were talking about kind of how we were missing these kind of dumb but fun comedies. And amazingly, we get another one this week too. Now, for me, this isn't quite hit the heights of Let's Start a Cult, but there's a lot of fun stuff in this movie as well. But this is a straight up silly, goofy comedy that you would just see coming out in the, I don't know, early thousands, late 90s kind of a thing. Basic concept is you got Walt, played by Shameik Moore. And Walt is the star of this thing. He's everything pretty much in this movie. Although you'll see there's main name stars in this. This seems like a low budget comedy, but there are definitely people in here you'll recognize when I list the rest of the cast. You got Shameik Moore. You have Skunk. That's kind of the other main co-star of this, and just played by Darcy Carden. And then along with that, you've got a few other people you might know. Let's see. Oh, Paul Reiser and Susan Sarandon both play kind of big parts in this. So you wouldn't think that they would pop into this kind of silly, lowbrow comedy in this era, but they do. So basic concept is it starts out and Walt he's applying for a job at a bowling alley, and he's right out of the gate. He's just you can tell he's he's just not good at much of anything. He's not wearing a shirt. He has a thing for not wearing shirts or not having sleeves on anything ever. He's just a major goofball, right? And he gets the job somehow because the owner of the bowling alley, AlleyCatz with a Z, kind of just decides that she likes him, even though he's, ridiculous. He gets the job. You're not even sure exactly what he's going to do because very quickly he just meets up with the other people that hang out at the bar or the bar of the bowling alley. If you've ever been to a bowling alley bar, I mean, that's definitely a place to meet interesting people. He immediately meets Skunk, and she seems to be just a lifer, a lifer at this bar, barely awake, just probably drunk 90% of the day, has to get drunk to get an even keel in the morning, that kind of thing. And you find out, is there partly because she's an ex-pro bowler, but she's obviously fallen down on her luck. And then there's also, who else is there? Brother Candy, played by Rel Battle. Brother Candy shows up, and he's one of those dudes that's always, kind of preaching to you his own version of the world and justice and religion and all of it kind of combined, and maybe African stuff. And he's the guy that kind of comes in and everyone knows what he's up to, but also they're kind of annoyed by him. They're kind of okay with it as well. These are kind of main characters that pop in, but right out of the gate, the health inspectors or whatever show up, and building inspectors, and then everything is in violation at AlleyCatz, and she's got to get it up to code, or they're going to have to close it down. So what are they going to do? Well, you find out really, really quickly that Walt, he can bowl. He doesn't know he can bowl. He's never bowled before, but he's in a bowling alley, so of course he's got to try it. And he's, like spinning in circles and throwing the ball in like wild ways. And no matter what he does, he seems to be able to always get a strike. Like he can't not get a strike no matter what he does. Thus begins the basic comedy, which is you got Walt teaming up with Skunk as his trainer. And Skunk, of course, like I already mentioned, is not a very even-keeled person, but she has bowling background. So apparently she can be his trainer, although the training you could say was rather dubious since he already can just throw a strike no matter what he does. More his manager than his trainer, I guess you'd say. Immediately he's going to hit the road and he's going to try to get enough money to keep the place alive, to keep AlleyCatz alive. So really basic concept versions of this you've seen a million times in movies. So it really all comes down to, is the silliness enough fun to keep you afloat? I think it is. There's a ton of gags. The various teams they meet are silly and stupid. What was I going to say? What would I compare this to? It also kind of in the same ballpark as something like ballpark. I don't know, like dodgeball or something. That kind of a feel. It's not quite as high concept, but it has a lot of fun. And I really think it comes down to the character of Walt, his silliness and kind of his approach, along with AlleyCat, or along with not AlleyCatz, but along with Skunk, are most of the fun of this movie. And of course, eventually they meet up with Susan Sarandon's character, and she's like the grande dame of the bowling circuit, and she's retired, but maybe she'll come out of retirement to take down Walt. What do you think? A ton of good gags. Like I said, there's a whole gag around the sponsorship he wants to get. There's a gag around the way he deals with various different bowling championship. There's a gag around the checks that they get if they win, and just a bunch of stuff like that. It's such a good-hearted fun. It's never too gross. It's never too offensive, but it's on the line sometimes. It wants to be. It just feels like a genuine silly comedy made by people who kind of love silly comedies and wanted to make one. And I think that, and plus you can tell it's definitely a kind of a vehicle for Shameik Moore. I don't know Shameik Moore. He might be maybe he's a famous comic that I'm just not aware of because I'm not very much into the comedy scene. But I would say anyone can kind of approach this and have a good time with it. Like it never gets, like I said, it never gets too raunchy. I mean, I wouldn't show it to little teeny kids, but I mean, it's the kind of, once again, like last week, it's kind of at the same level as an old Adam Sandler movie or something where you can just kind of enjoy the comedy for what it is. Like I said, it's not as high level as Let's Start a Cult. I would say I would probably give this. This is to me a 3-star banger. This is a recommend, but for people especially who are in the mood or love that kind of movie, I think this will hit the sweet spot. It'll feel like satisfying meal. But for those who just don't like silly, dumb kind of comedy approach, then it will probably not work for them. But there's so much likability in here. It might even be higher than that. But I'm going to go 3-star banger on this. Once again, surprising find, The Gutter. I had a lot of fun with this. And I would expect that probably Eric and Greg would have a lot of fun with this too. I'm kind of curious to see how Eric goes with it because he might be similar to me. I bet you he's not quite as high as Let's Start a Cult. I see him mentioning another movie here because we love Let's Start a Cult so much.